All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Movie Minds. Long delayed, but we're finally going to review our last movie. We're slowly playing catch up, and we were having some technical issues, so we'll see how this goes tonight. Everybody's ready to go. Well, the movie tonight is There Will Be Blood, which is something I'm going to let Brad actually introduce with a little synopsis, his initial impressions, and I'm going to try to take a step back and let Brandon and Brad discuss it, and then I'll kind of jump in when I see fit. So let's try it out. Brad, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. How are you guys doing after that long delay signing on? How you doing, Brandon?
What?
Can't hear you.
Just kidding.
Hi.
Just kidding.
No,
Oh, you got me.
was that was so not
You
funny.
got me. Okay.
I'm
Um,
great, man. I'm great. I'm just waiting for
look,
some
look.
weirdos from the dark
Oh,
web to find me since I just did all that camera crap to my computer. We'll see what happens. For those of you that don't know, my video wasn't working on Zoom, so I'm on my cell phone tonight. Hi, and ready to rock and roll.
All right. And Joe, thank you for the intro. I'm gonna get right into There Will Be Blood. So There Will Be Blood is a 2007 film by Paul Thomas Anderson, um, starring Daniel Day-Lewis and is it Paul Dano? Joe,
yep,
I just blanked on the guy's
yep,
name, Paul Dano. Um,
correct.
Daniel Day-Lewis plays Daniel Plainview, who at the start of the movie is a silver miner, has a loan operation, and then he becomes more successful at that. Eventually transitions into oil. So this is about the turn of the century or the late 19th century, early 20th century. The film is loosely based on the Upton Sinclair novel Oil with an exclamation point. So from what I understand, Paul Thomas Anderson based he took about the first 150 pages or so of Oil, and that was his inspiration for the beginning of There Will Be Blood. And then the film kind of took a life of its own from there. So you have Daniel Plainview, who becomes a would-be oil baron in Southern California. He meets a young man named Paul Sunday, who tells him about his family ranch and that there's oil seepage. So he ends up going up there and he meets Paul's twin brother, Eli. So Eli Sunday plays a big part in this. Uh, Daniel Plainview, you can see right from the beginning of the movie, is a kind of singular driven character. We get that right from the beginning. So I'm just going to talk about the opening there where he's mining for silver alone in the desert. He actually breaks his leg, but still gets the silver ore out and drags himself all the way back to town. So you see right from the beginning that his ambition is peak. He's driven to succeed. You almost get the hint that it's about money, but it's even about more than money. It goes deeper than that. He adopts a orphan boy from one of his employees that was killed in an oil accident, in an oil mining accident. H.W. Plainview is his name. And so Daniel Plainview sets out with his son, H.W., presents himself as a family man, and his oil business is a family business. So he comes to this town of Little Boston where he was invited to, and that's where the movie really picks up. So in Little Boston, there's all this oil around. So Daniel goes around offering sums of money to the different landowners to extract oil from the ground. But he comes to a head with Eli Sunday, who is something of a charismatic preacher. He also is kind of a driven character in a different way. And so throughout the movie, you get this tension between Daniel Plainview, and Eli Sunday. Um, there is threats of violence, there's actual violence, and then the movie culminates at the end with Daniel Plainview having established his own mini oil empire and then if things come to a head with Eli Sunday at the end of the movie. So there will be blood. It could be described as a dark cinematic piece. The music is very actually the music is one of the best parts of it. So I believe the composer for the that did the score for the film is, I'm blanking on his name, but he's the guitarist for Radiohead. Um,
Oh,
so the music very much fits. You have a lot of still shots, and then you have a lot of panning shots with these characters moving through this scenery that's kind of bleak. And you have these people. So what they're doing is extracting everything from the earth. So the title itself, just to go into that, there will be blood. Um, it has multiple layers of meaning. So this is actually um taken from a verse in the book of Exodus in the Bible, when Moses when God declares through Moses one of the curses on the Egyptians, that the rivers and the water will turn to blood. He says, et cetera, there, and then there will be blood from that. So you have actual blood is shed through the movie. Daniel Plainview is a maniacal character. It's hidden beneath this shell of a businessman, but he is willing to shed blood. Also, what is oil but the blood of the earth? So it's extracting blood from the bones of the earth. So you have these great scenes where there's oil gushing forth from the earth. Um, and then this is kind of held in tension with scenes where there's actual human bloodshed. And you get this double feature of blood from the earth and human blood. Um, as usual with in my opinion, the acting job done by Daniel Day-Lewis is it's a peak kind of performance. He's very much a character actor. So if you know him from Gangs of New York and from other ones, he's very much a character actor. Uh, Daniel Plainview is one of these roles where I have trouble imagining someone other than Daniel Day-Lewis playing this role. It would fall on its face. And Paul Dano is excellent at as kind of the foil to Daniel Plainview. He's not a strong man in the same way, but he's kind of this underlying antagonist to Daniel Plainview, with his spirituality, which turns out to be also kind of corrupt by the end of the movie. You see, he is also seduced by money, and then it comes to a head at the end, as I said before, with an act of violence where Daniel Plainview actually kills Eli Sunday, and you get the scene at the end where that takes place. So also one thing I failed to mention, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. At one point, the H.W. Plainview, so his little son, who's actually his adopted son, because of this accident with the oil well, and then there's an explosion. He loses his hearing, so he's deaf from the point of being a young child. He's deaf. Um, and then Daniel Plainview can't handle it, so he sends him off to a school. In essence, he abandons him. So there's this great scene at the church that is built where he has to confess to the group that he's abandoned his child. He needs the forgiveness of God. He needs the blood of the Lamb. You have this blood, the blood of Christ. He needs forgiveness. But really, his confession is not sincere. His confession is in order so that he can get at more oil. And then even in the final scene, when things come to a head with Eli Sunday, he reveals to him that he doesn't need Eli comes with this offer of the last great oil field in Little Boston. He says, I've already drank it. I drink the blood of the lamb every day. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. He's like an ogre at this point. I mean, he's bent, he's twisted. He's already disowned his son and called him a bastard and broken ties with that. You see by the end, he's been driven to near insanity by his lust for it. Even goes, I think, beyond lust for money. It's his ambition, which will not allow him to quit. I'll turn it over in a minute, but one scene I think really speaks to that. When he's talking, there's a man who shows up. There's a lot of layers in this, but there's a man who shows up who pretends to be his half brother. He finds out that he's not. He's lying to him. But they talk about this mansion in his hometown in Wisconsin. How when he was a boy, he thought he would be happy if he could live in that mansion, but now he thinks that if he saw it, it would make him sick. And I think that what that shows is he's restless. He can't. He's almost like an elemental spirit from the earth. Like he will not rest. He needs to dig in the earth. He needs to accumulate wealth. He needs to conquer. So he has these rivalries with these other, like Standard Oil, these other oil companies. But he's kind of doing all of this himself. So that's an introduction to There Will Be Blood. I'll turn it over to you guys, and then I can add in more afterward.
Well, I am curious what Brandon thinks. I've been told before that I have a tendency to kind of ramble along with these. So, Brandon, I'm going to kind of ask you to kind of take over the reins of your impressions from the film. And I only know a little bit about what you thought of it. I remember you said in your very, very brief review that you liked it up until the ending, which you really struggled with. And I think that might be something to dive into a little more. Well, so tell me more about your thoughts and specifically the ending, because that really stuck out to you, Brandon.
Yeah, Brad, I can't believe you were drawing a blank on the Radiohead guitars. It was Johnny Greenwood.
Because you just Googled it, you monk. Yeah, Johnny Greenwood. You knew that off the top of your head.
I like Radiohead, but
I knew it was Johnny something. He's a great guitarist, but whatever.
Yeah, member since 1985, and he was actually born November 5th. But
good
anyway,
hey,
on another note too, Brad, send me the guitar chords for the theme song, because I was messing around with the bass tonight, and I think I can add something to the theme song. But anyway, yeah, so There Will Be Blood. Really liked it up until the ending. Give me 1 second. I'm going to open up my notes on my phone here. And as you guys know by now, what I kind of like to do is I make little notes throughout the movie. So I liked the meeting with Paul Sunday. I will say though, I thought the whole time that it was the same person. I thought there was like some multi-personality disorder there. But Brad, you said that that's his twin. Like, that's confirmed, right? Like,
yeah, it's Eli and Paul. He even tells him at the end, he's like, Paul was you're like the afterbirth. Paul is the chosen son. He was the smart one, so yeah, they're twins. But you could see when Daniel comes to the Sunday ranch, he thinks he's looking at Paul at first. But
yeah. So maybe like Cain and Abel.
Well, I was going to get to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I like the business side of the movie a lot as a business teacher. I kind of like seeing, I'm assuming this is probably what, like 19th century this takes place? Like 1800s?
It starts out, I believe it's, if I remember right, it's like 1898 at the beginning, and then we get into the early 20th century. You have the oil boom in Southern California. And that's the same thing with the Upton Sinclair novel. It's like the same setting, same era. Okay.
He makes a mention in the one scene about how he's going to avoid shipping costs. And obviously the main character, what's his name again?
Daniel Plainview.
Yeah, Plainfield. They're really good businessman. Honestly, but I think, and something I tell my students is, you can't let business make you sinful either. You know what I mean? Kind of reiterating what you said earlier. What I like about being a good business teacher is I try to teach my kids kind of the opposite of what was driving him, right? Like, yeah, money's important, but at the same time, if you let it control your life, you're gonna end up how he did, right? I mean, there's a reason why money's the root of all evil, and we need enough to survive, but at the same time, I mean, you said the word lust, like that's exactly what it was. Gluttony, you could say gluttony, any of those, and too much of anything, leads us to sin. Other than you can never have too much of God. But anyway, I'm sure you'll get more into that. Um, some other things I noticed. I like that he tries to sell. He's a good salesman too, along with a good business person, because you can be a good business person and not a good salesman. But I also think he's a good salesman in the fact that he mentions, like, I'm bringing an economy to this town. You know what I mean? Like, that's how he's selling them. Like, I'm the one bringing the church. I'm the one bringing. You know what I mean? He kind of paints
Yeah.
himself as the great, like, liberator of a community that was kind of just doing their own thing. And it really makes you think, like, what were Paul's intentions? You know what I'm saying? Like, he probably knew the whole time this was gonna, like, corrupt the town. But oh, Brad, I want to hear your thoughts on this, and Joe, you chime in. What'd you think of him not letting Eli lead in the prayer? What was the motive there?
That's
Power
what they
or
call a yeah. Well, Brandon, I think that's what they call a power move, basically.
Yeah,
I thought that was very
nice.
slick of him. I did like that he also. Um, I also like that he kind of used it as a way to basically get a little closer to his son in a way by making him happy and kind of actually basing it around the young daughter who he eventually marries, which is kind of one of the interesting things about Mr. Plainview that I'll kind of ask you all about when I chime in. But I thought that was just a really strong aspect of him as a businessman, kind of making himself the center of that,
Yeah.
taking in the spiritual part of the community as well, but also kind of just a little spite because he doesn't like Eli basically and what he stands for. So he it was a way to kind of take a dig at him as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned HW. I mean, and we can get biblical here too, but it's ironic. I mean, man, he loves HW until the disability. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of after that. Like, I think he still loved him, but it was different. You know what I mean? Like, did he really love him? You know what I mean? Or not?
Mm.
But I'm just kind of like assisting here. I just got a couple more points that I took note to. Um, I find it ironic, Eli, I think it was Eli that warned, like, bad things were going to come. And then, like, literally in the next scene, you see HW. No, that was later on when he sets fire to the house that the fake twin brothers in. Why did he do that? What's your thoughts on that? Do you think HW knew the whole time the guy was a
Well,
con artist?
remember he found out that he was a fraud, but he can't
Oh, through the book.
communicate. He found the guy had gotten the real brother's diary or whatever in prison. He found that he was a fraud, so his way was to set fire to this. I do think, to touch upon what you said earlier, I do think he loved the boy. I think when you see at the beginning there, he even has love for this little girl, because remember the father would beat he would beat the little girl, and he says no more hitting, no more hitting.
Yep.
He does have love. What you see over the course of the film as he grows is he doesn't know how to reconcile his human love with this ambition, you know. Like, he says to the guy who's the fake brother, he's like, I hate most people. I hate most people. They're that great scene where they're in the ocean there, on the Pacific Ocean, and he's like, I just can't stand most people. He can't. He's very he's very much a withdrawn character. He comes to the town, like you said. He offers to do the drilling to turn the town. You know, it's gonna spit money all. When I tell you I'm an oil man, I'm an oil man. Like, I'm gonna. What's he say? I'm gonna blow money all over this place. Like,
Money all
yeah,
over the town.
yeah. and but I think he loves the boy just by the end. Like, he can't remember the son wants to go into business for himself and go down into Mexico with his wife. He can't accept that. He just can't. And his act of calling his son a bastard, which in sense is disowning him. He's like, "You're a bastard from a basket." He sends him off. That broke him. He's drinking, and then by the time Eli comes, he's murderous. Like you can see that at the end there, he's eating that piece of meat. He's looking at Eli like a predator. He's like chewing that meat. I don't know if you remember, they're in that bowling alley.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about Big Lebowski tomorrow. So there's a tie of the bowling. But he's looking at him. He actually kills him with a bowling pin. It's very Neanderthalish, barbaric. He beats him with this club. Like it's almost like something from a Greek myth, like a Greek tragedy there at the end, the way he dispatches Eli and spills his blood. And you were talking about biblical themes, like I said, there will be blood is right from Exodus. And then you got the biblical names, Eli, Paul, Daniel, this charismatic group. He kills the fake brother and he tries to hide the body, but it's discovered by this man named Bandy. It's the same thing like in Genesis when Cain kills Abel, tries to hide the body, and God says, the blood of Abel calls out to the earth, calls out to me from the earth, calls out for revenge. Like it's the same thing. So he's um I think he does have love. He has a humanity, but it's seeped out more and more. Like it just he loses it by the end. You also see, like with the Upton Sinclair novel, it follows over into this. You also see like the dark side of capitalism, the dark side of you know taking from the earth, like just taking and taking and taking silver and then taking oil and just taking. He eventually takes human life.
Well, and that kind of brings me into kind of a good segue into two things. First, well, I guess I'll start with the second thing I wanted to say. I mean, the whole time, to me, it's pretty obvious, and I think I even said something to you, Brad. To me, it's and Joe too, actually. To me, it's pretty obvious the two themes is biblical and, to me, the evils of capitalism. You know what I mean? Because even though I'm a business teacher and I love capitalism, there is an evil side to it. There's never going to be a perfect economy system. It's just not possible. But it's just that corporate greed, and what can happen. I mean, you even look at like your local communities and stuff, and all the farmland getting. It's like how many warehouses do we need? You know what I mean? There's like two warehouses down the street from me. I don't think anybody's even using them. You know what I mean? So why did you just build on that farmland? You know what I'm saying? So that's how I related to it a little bit. Like I see even my local rural back home in Greencastle, like where I grew up. It's like, why are we building on land that animals use and people used to use for food? Like, you know what I mean? Now it's like warehouses and stuff that we don't really need. Kind of the same thing here. Like we need oil, but you don't need that much. And the second thing I kind of wanted to ask is, why did it take him so long to get in contact with that guy Bandy? Like, what was the reasoning for that? Why did he not go visit him in the beginning? You know what I mean? When he had the chance. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if you remember, Bandy says, I want to talk to you personally, because they're looking at this map, these plots, and he's like, what is this? That's the Bandy tract. And he says he's willing to talk to you. And he says, well, basically screw him. I don't need him. I can go around, I can go around. And Bandy is a member of Eli's church.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bandy is like concerned with his converting him to this. This is like a semi-occult. And so that's why, like he doesn't have time for him. That's basically what it is. He doesn't have the time for him because he's buying up all these parcels. He's just buying up everything. He's thinking about this pipeline. Um, that's really what it is.
Well, something else on that note too. You could also make a case that with that Eli, a false prophet. You know what I'm saying? That he wasn't all that great either. You know what I mean? And now obviously we have, at least I know, most, like, obviously I have a Catholic view on things, but I kind of sympathize with Daniel in that part. Like at the end, especially, you're full of crap, man. Like you're a false prophet. I kind of enjoyed seeing, even though wasn't a fan of Daniel, I kind of enjoyed seeing Daniel turn the tables and have Eli confess that,
Yeah.
because his church is just a
Well,
bunch of crap. Like,
he's a phony. He's a showman. Like
exactly.
it's very much, if you know
They
anything
both
about
are.
that charismatic movement at the turn of the century, it was very much a cult of personality, very much about show. The church is so plain; it's just wooden. He's the center part of the stage. Like I mean, there's a cross carved, but it's basically all about him. He's a prophet and a vessel for the Holy Spirit, and God speaks through him. And so you get this, like you said, why doesn't he ask him to come do the prayer to bless the oil well? Because it's a power play, like you already said. Like
Mhm.
it's who's going to be the patriarch of Little Boston? Is it going to be Daniel Plainview? Is it going to be Eli Sunday? Like who's going to rule over that? Um, and so you can see them. You remember that one part where he drags him into the oil, into the little puddle there, the pond of oil. He drags him in there and actually like puts it on him. It's almost like sacramental. He marks him like with the oil. Like he tells him, "I'm going to kill you." One time he tells him that. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, definitely Eli Sunday is not a sympathetic character either. He is villainous in his own way.
So when you think about it, there, in my opinion, and Joe, I don't know if I'm using, there's definitely a protagonist and an antagonist, but I don't think
Yeah,
the protagonist is someone you can root for. Like I don't think there's a good protagonist in this movie. You know what I mean? I think they're all kind of, or is society the
well,
protagonist? You know what I mean?
well, I mean, it's all kind of a commentary on, like you said, kind of the evils of capitalism and really looking at that specific point in time, everybody getting swept up because it was all about resources and expansion and building on that. And Daniel Plainview is kind of like the the quintessential, idea of somebody traditionally pursuing the American dream. You've got like the idea of really these big businessmen at the turn of the century, and your Carnegies and your Rockefellers. And Daniel Plainview is a good example of that, but it's also really looking at just how much evil and corruption and just darkness and death and destruction can go into that. And there, as you guys mentioned, their ambition just kind of, taking them and managing to create something big, but at the expense of what? At the expense of who? And at the expense of themselves at the end of the day. And maybe this is taking it to an extreme, but I'm sure there's some truth there that it's kind of looking at. And yeah, I agree that neither one of the two main characters is exactly likable because we see that they're both corrupt and they're certainly both pretty dark, you could say. But the thing that you mentioned, that towards the end when he kind of takes down Eli and kind of makes him confess his truths, the difference between them is that I guess one of them is a little more certain and honest about who he is. Like when, Daniel basically confesses to his fake brother that he, as Brad said, basically he hates people. You know, he is kind of being a salesman and he's kind of twisting the truth to get what he wants. But I'm not entirely sure that Eli was completely certain of it. I think he kind of believed his own hype
Mhm.
until he was kind of put on the spot at the end. And I think that one man was a little more certain of who he really was. And I know Brad said he thought there was some love that he had for HW and for the girl, and I think that that is possible. But I always kind of read it that pretty much as we saw him in the beginning of the movie, we only have like tiny little nuggets about his past. That apparently there's a mother out there that he doesn't really see. He's completely distanced himself from it, like in that small town, and just seeing him completely by himself in the desert struggling, and we see him as business, 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 and not really having any real close connections to anybody. I honestly always thought that all the moves he made, while there might be like a tiny bit of compassion and love, I think it was almost inconsequential. I think everything he did was to serve his own needs pretty much almost from the beginning. Because the thing that he says about HW at the end, how he disowns him, I agree that yes, that was him kind of pushing him away, and he does go even further downhill at that point. But really, it was kind of the fact that after, as you all mentioned, after the HW goes deaf, he kind of has a harder time dealing with it because the kid no longer serves his purpose as a bargaining chip and as a face that is a family man that people can connect to, because that was all a lie.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe he had some echo of compassion, but I never really saw that. I never really felt that. And the only thing that might have been close to compassion in is the fact that HW was an extension of his own ego, because he's like, all right, I'm going to use this kid, but at least with that, I have a legacy, which is why when he pushes the kid away and he thinks he's found his brother, that's his blood. And the only person he feels he can relate to, once again, every blood, is someone who is genetically connected to him. So he's basically part of me, which is why I'm going to open up to him. I can respect him. I can trust him because I don't like other people. I don't trust other people. I don't connect with other people. So that's why HW is pushed aside. And then he murders the fake brother because he in that one moment, it was really ugly, but he was vulnerable. He was open about who he was. He felt he could be, because for whatever reason, he's lost his family, abandoned it for his pursuits. We don't know a lot of the story there, but we saw him give in, and then he just quickly kills that guy because he is a liability, but also that he hurt him and he kind of forced him into that position of true
Yeah,
vulnerability.
but
And then he brings the
the,
son in, and then it's like therein, that's it.
the death of what was the guy's real? Did he ever say his real name?
I don't, did he, Brad? I forget. I don't think he did.
I
He's like, I'm not your brother.
don't I don't think
Well,
I don't remember. I don't remember exactly.
The false
the
brother.
death the death of fake Henry was definitely not justified. That was sad. That was my man, con artist, just a dude that he's just trying to. I said, hey man, we're all trying to make it, man. I don't care that you lied.
well,
Did what you had to
well,
do, and you had us going for a while. I mean, hats off to you. Salute. I hope you're resting in
well,
peace up there.
the thing about it too, Brandon, is that you're right. He was a good con man. He was kind of doing just what he had to do. I think that's why Daniel also was enraged by it, because he got conned. He's kind of the con artist, and somebody swindled
Ah,
him. So that might have
that's
been
probably
another
why he
blow
doesn't
to his
like
ego.
Eli either.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime he can have any kind of advantage over him, he doesn't like that. But
He
because he
is
did
kind of
scare
a jerk to Eli. I mean, I think they're kind of nasty to each other, but I think Daniel took it a little far, embarrassing him like that in the one scene. But
Well, he was
I'm not a fan of
bugged himself.
Eli either, but I just don't like seeing people get bullied. You know what I mean?
No, he is a
He he was
bully. That's for
he was
sure.
trying to be a bully himself. Like he was trying to throw his weight around, like
That's
hold that plot of land over him and all this kind of stuff too. I do, Joe. I do think you're right. I do think there are some signs there that he had some glimmers of genuine affection for HW, but
Uh-huh.
definitely he was a face. He was a billboard for him, the family business. That's what he can't sell that anymore when he's deaf. I think he you see when there's that explosion and they pull him, the kid's covered in oil, and he's trying, it's there, but then it evaporates. It's a sad scene. He leaves him on the train, if you remember that, when he leaves him,
Well,
abandons him on that train.
no, it's this, and that's kind of like the big thing about it that I think sticks out to me is the morality of Daniel and the possible good in him. Because you're right, I think there's faint glimmers, and then as I was watching it, I remember like that is such a great scene when the oil is kind of on fire and exploding, and HW is hurt, and he does take his son, who he does essentially adopt, and get him out of the way and make sure he's safe. So he does have some concern. It's like one of the few uh, supposedly selfless things he seems to do, even though I think it was still self-involved. He does take care of that, but then throughout the rest of the scene, his son is secondary. It's all about, can we save the oil? Can we save the machine? My son's
Mm.
injured. It's just, it's profit loss. It's casualty. He's ultimately just a tool. Like, even if he cares, it's like you've all been saying, his ambition is still number one. He's number one, and not even just himself, but just the desire to get and achieve and just have as much wealth around him just for its own sake. Because I think the man's just deeply insecure, as we see when the other businessmen kind of try to move on him. And he's like, oh, you're not going to tell me how to run my family. Like, I'm here, I didn't send him away. I'm meeting with my son because
Yeah.
he wants to present like he's better than everybody else. He's a deeply insecure man.
Yeah.
And got time period too. So like I think it's kind of messed up, but he would have had an easier time in today's day and age if that was his motive with HW. Like I feel like in the 21st century, like people are going to be more sympathetic towards the special needs and people that are deaf, whereas like turn of the century, 19th and the 20th century, I mean those people, and it's sad, but like because I have a sister with special needs, and I've talked to my parents about this and stuff, and that time period they would have been classified as freaks. You know what I mean? Sent off to special schools and hospitals. Like so, when that happened, he doesn't have, like you kind of just said, he doesn't have that out anymore. Like to the general public, and it's evil. But back then, he's not really a cute kid anymore. It's what's wrong with him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Unfortunately, and that was just the time period. You know.
Mm-hmm.
They was a liability for him. That's true. Yeah.
Real quick, because I know we did say we kind of wanted to make this a quick one. I did want to finish off we can, because I'm sure we're going to have a long discussion on this. So just to kind of continue with the agenda, I maybe you guys can change my mind, but that ending, I was like, what the heck did I mean, the movie was so good until then. So if you can give me the philosophical meanings behind what that ending was, maybe you'll change my mind. But I was like, oh man, the imagery is great, the sound is great, the storyline, I'm really into this. There's some messages behind this, and then it's like, I'm finished, and I'm like, what the heck did I just what
Well, Brandon, I
finished?
think that you might be missing some of the little bit of dark comedy that's layered throughout the movie. I mean, you just had
I'm not a
I
comedy
drink your
fan.
milkshake. I think it's really like dark, black, cold, but it's some comedy there. I think you can read that as comedy saying I'm done, because he's kind of like we said, he's kind of lost all sense of, if he had any tiny smidgen of morality or sympathy, it's pretty much gone. It was kind of just really this last act of
Mm-hmm.
desperation after his son left. So it could have just been him. He might have kind of just temporarily lost himself mentally as well. I always thought that the line was kind of simple, though. It's like it's kind of just trying to be blunt about the whole thing. You've got this big epic story, but what was it ultimately for? It was all for naught. We just have that cut to black. The man's completely alone. All that quest for everything, and he has no one, nothing. He's just a murderer now in his bowling alley, and he is done. He's finished. His story is done. He achieved what he set out to do, and he has nothing left. And it's kind of bitter. And he could literally be finished because he just killed somebody, and he might be going to jail. And maybe he's literally done with his meal, done with his game, and he doesn't care that he killed somebody. I think there's a couple different ways
Yeah.
you could read that. I don't think there's just one. I think it's supposed to evoke different reactions, but I think it is supposed to be like that final, yeah, after everything and all that build up, that's it. So I enjoy that personally, but I could see if it's a little off putting too.
I will say
What do you
real
think, Brad?
quick. Well, real quick, something else too, because I know Brad's gonna have some really good insight. Um, I didn't take note to how kind of rapid the ending approached too, like kind of like how quickly life goes by. Like before you
Mm-hmm.
know it, we're seeing 1927, and then it's like, well, what was going on, all that time, and then and we didn't really get to see HW grow up, and like I said earlier, having a sister with special needs, that was a character that I really was sympathetic to and I really liked. So I really wanted to
Brandon,
see how he
Brandon.
progressed. All right, go ahead.
Well, as you're asking that question, this is literally just coming to me now, but maybe we're seeing all that was important to him in his life.
Mm,
The high point of his life is what we see in the film. Everything else he skips because it's inconsequential to him.
Yeah.
that's a good
I
point.
agree with that.
Brad, was that a Catholic wedding for HW? Just take notes of that.
I'm not sure.
Cool.
It
Just curious.
could have been Episcopalian or something. I mean, it's not really clear. I think with the ending, just to go
Yeah,
back
go ahead.
to that, I really like the ending. Like Joe said, there's kind of a dark comedy there. There's this like, finality. Like he literally says, "I'm done. That's it." He is like Daniel Plainview had run its the spirit that of Daniel Plainview had run its course. Like he's not built like he is a relic. He's a relic of like the old West or like the manifest destiny conquering the West. And w by the time you get to that point in the 20th century, he's a relic. Like he's not part of Standard Oil or whatever. He's not a Rockefeller. He's not going to go forward. Like he's a guy who was out in the desert digging in the ground, where the Native Americans used to be. They're all gone. You even have that scene like he's shooting at the animal heads. Like I think that's emblematic of that, like the destruction of the West. And his son's gone, and now he's done. Like the time of like the Daniel Plainviews is gone, and then you get that. I think it brings it all to that culmination, and he kills Eli. That's it. Because there's nothing else for him to conquer. He has no. It's almost like he has no purpose anymore. He's
Mhm.
broken down, and he can't do what he does anymore. He's not even a kind of businessman that can just sit somewhere and write checks and boss people around. And he has to be with his hands in the earth and like doing these things. Like he has to be on the scene. That's not how it's done anymore. Everything is industrialized, everything is moved to a larger scale. Um, and so I think that's all there when he kills Eli and that's it. And you really have that music come in. So I'll just say another thing again about about the score. I think it's brilliant. The use of music, it's minimalistic in all the right ways. You got that minimalistic like drum beat that's almost like a heartbeat, and the tensions building with the use of the instruments. There's no part in that score where I'm like, well, you know, this doesn't fit or something. I think the score is perfect for the movie. I think it's a perfect score, and and the way the camera, everything done with the camera angles, the long shots, the panning shots, the close-ups when they're used, like when they're in the ocean, he's like a predator looking at him in the waves. Um, all those kind of things. I think it's very nearly flawlessly done with that. Um, so yeah, I like the ending, and it crescendos with that. You have all the build up, and then you jump forward to this point in his life, disowns his son, and then kills his nemesis. He's done, and that's it. Um, so that's what I think about the ending.
Story's over. So do we sell you on that at all, Brandon?
Yeah, again.
Did we sell the ending for you at all? Did that help at all?
Yeah, it helps. Um, Still didn't like it, but
Fair.
yeah, no, it helped for sure. Do we want
Well,
to do ratings?
yeah, I was thinking it might be that time. Well, you know what, Brad, since you opened up, I'll let you go with the first review, and we'll make Brandon go second. How's that sound?
Okay,
I
good.
got my mind ready, so
Well,
I'm good to go.
this was my pick for a reason. There Will Be Blood is one of my favorite movies. If I were to do a top 10, it would definitely be in the top 10.
Ooh,
It may even be top five. Like I really like this movie. I think I there's nothing I can find wrong with it, and I love everything about it. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is genius in his portrayal of Daniel Plainview. He's maniacal. He's plodding forward. He's devouring. Everything about it is good. I think like I already talked about the score, the camera work. the actors around, like everything was perfectly. I think the casting was like flawless. I mean, and there's also, if you're looking for it, there's also parts that will make you laugh. Like there's there is a dark comedy there. I laugh at several points. And so just to get right to it, I'm gonna give There Will Be Blood 5 mines for me. 5 out of 5.
Brandon?
Um,
Go ahead,
yes,
Brendan.
I didn't like it as much as that, but I will say it was a good movie. Um, it kept my interest the whole time up until the end. I thought the ending, and I really liked what Joe said about, and Brad too, but I really like your theory on the things that are important to him. You know, that's that was a really good take. Um, I did not think it was 5 mines, but I liked it more than I thought I was going to. Um, I'm happy I watched it. It was a little long. I'm not gonna lie. So I think length, but I feel like you needed to know all that stuff as well. So it kind of makes sense as to why it was that long. I'm gonna give it a 0.6 mile. No, I'm joking. No, I'm gonna give it 4.5 because I thought it was a good movie. It is a classic. It held my interest. I thought the acting was great. There were characters that I identified with in a way, and also like you want to root for Plainfield badly, but you just can't. You know what I mean? Like from the beginning, you want to see this guy succeed, and like as the movie goes on, you're like, ooh, no. And then Eli, you think at first like it's this like Christian family, and then you figure out that like it's not. It's a cult basically. By the way, we didn't even get into it, but the way Eli treats his father, I mean, such an egotistical like jerk. But anyway, I digress. I'm gonna give it 4.5 mines. That's my final. I didn't think it was 5 worthy, um, but I do think I can see why a lot of people like it, and yeah, 4.5 mines for me.
Cool. Yeah, pretty much echoing everything you guys said. If I had to narrow it down to two things, I mean, I love the performances, obviously, especially Daniel Day-Lewis. He's one of the best actors, one of my favorites. This is very much my type of movie. I like the history, but also looking at an aspect of history we might not see a lot. Cinematography, the atmosphere with the soundtrack is very me. I love movies that are very atmospheric, great costumes too. So yeah, I think it's incredibly well done. I think it's one of the great films. I don't really have any issues with it. It's a really good movie. I'm actually going to also agree with Brad. Give it 5 out of 5 nines. I think it's one of the great movies. I really do.
Cool.
So wait, is that
Almost.
first?
Almost perfect.
Is that technically considered the first 5 star since the last episode?
Well, we had the lost episode.
Well, well, the last episode, did we? Which one? I forget. Did we give either? What was Edward Scissorhands 5 mines? I forget.
Brandon gave Edward Scissorhands 5 mines,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
that
think
never
okay.
happened.
I don't think I like the clip. Oh yeah, that's right. That file's cursed. That episode, they'll never know about Batman. They'll never know.
So what's the answer? Is this technically the first 5 or in Movie Minds history?
I feel like I don't know. We got to go back through and watch it. The listeners will have to tell us. I feel like on average, this is probably the highest rated movie overall we've
It,
done. I
it
think.
is the highest rated out of the 3 of us.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
So this I think is our best reviewed movie so far on Movie Mind. So that's a landmark. We got to
Yeah,
get that triple five.
I
Got to
get
reach
that
for the triple
triple
five.
five.
we might get it.
Thanks a lot, Brandon.
We might get it in the next one. I mean,
Well, we'll see.
your
Well,
wife, my wife, is not
Brandon,
the issue
I'll tell
here.
you, I think the next episode's gonna be divisive. I think so. I'm telling you, might be divisive.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they're not. They don't believe in anything.
Preview. Sneak peek.
Yeah, I know we got to save it, but I told Joe today I love in the beginning how George H.W. Bush says, "This aggression will not stand."
Yeah, there's HW. HW is another connection.
Oh, there's another connection.
Yeah. This aggression will not stand, man. I mean, yeah, it really tied the room together, Walter. Sorry, we got to save it.
We do. Let's save it. We're going to try to record tomorrow, and our next one will be Lebowski, the big one.
Oh, that's great. I'm so whoever voted for that, thank you. I'm so happy they voted for that one. How sweet.
Yeah, well, but P1 Harmony or whatever, we're gonna have to.
Hey, we're doing it.
5 Nights at Freddy's.
We're doing it.
Man.
P1 Harmony. I told you about what happened to me in P1 Harmony.
Maybe.
Did I tell you guys?
No.
I was listening to my favorite podcast,
No.
other than this one, Blink 182's podcast, and they were asking the one girl what she's doing this weekend, and she's like, "I'm going to."
182. We almost got through it without a Blink 182.
Ah!
She said, "I'm going to a P1
Damn.
Harmony concert," and I said, "Hey, I know what that is." So shout out to one of my favorite students who got me to know what P1 Harmony is.
Yes, thank you.
I relate to it.
It does look entertaining. We might check it out.
It's P1 Harmony. Well, there you go. That's a
already-
14.5 out of 15, so nearly a perfect score.
Ah,
So close.
Brandon, you holding out on me, man.
But Baby Hop is here. Yep.
I just couldn't. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Hold on.
you gotta be true to yourself, man. It's fine. It just means it's not one of the ultimate grades.
That's too
Not by
bad.
movie line.
I wonder if we'll
It's
get
close.
what do you got?
Well, I'm not plugged. I'm not amped up.
I can't hear it.
Do you want me to amp it up or maybe
No,
just
why don't you save that and we'll
Brandon, well, save it for the recording, man. We'll get it.
Hey, by the way, it's all G and E flat.
Oh, sweet. I can do that.
The whole thing.
High
Yeah.
G or any G? Like,
Just G.
what do you want?
G.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, either way. Yeah. That's it, man.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Movie Minds.
E flat.
Double feature. There will be blood and a big Lebowski. Hear Brandon argue with
I got it.
Adam Joe. Daniel Day-Lewis
Oh.
stole the show. Oh. It's the Movie Minds Podcast Picture Show.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about Dome Feet.
And that's a wrap.